Ethiopia is one country that never ceases to amaze me. How a tiny little nation can project its power this far in Kenya is something else, but today's video is not about the Oromo or Somalis. We are taking a look at the Amhara. The Amhara region has always been a troublesome region for the Ethiopian government. The Fano militia who operate in the area are fighting against the federal government. And if you thought the war in the Tigray region was bad, just wait until you hear what is happening in the Amhara region. This conflict has been going on for a while now, but it seems to be escalating recently. Before we get into the details, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and like this video to help us reach our goal of 1 million subscribers by December. It will really help us grow. Thanks for your support. Now let's get into it. Recently, there were protests in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia's capital, which turned violent. The protesters were calling for the release of imprisoned opposition leaders and an end to the state of emergency. The violence resulted in the death of at least 5 people. This comes amid reports that the federal government is planning to crack down on dissent. In response, the government declared a state of emergency in November, giving security forces the power to arrest people without a warrant. It also banned gatherings of more than 2 people. The government said the measures were necessary to restore order after weeks of protests that turned violent. At least 38 civilians have been killed in the unrest, according to the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission. But it seems like the recent clashes between the Fano and the Ethiopian army are even deadlier. On Sunday, there was heavy fighting between Fano forces and the Ethiopian army in the town of Kamashi. The fighting reportedly started when the army tried to disarm Fano fighters. At least 43 Fano fighters were killed in the clashes, according to a local official. This has escalated the conflict between these two groups even further. There are currently more than 100,000 refugees from the fighting in Sudan. The fighting is part of a larger conflict that has been going on for months. It all started back in August when the government tried to disarm the Fano militia. The Fano are a loose collection of armed groups that have been fighting for greater autonomy in the region. They say they are not a threat to the government and only want to protect their people. The government sees them as a threat to national security and has been trying to disarm them ever since. In response to the crackdown, the Fano launched an offensive against government targets. They have attacked military bases, police stations, and government buildings. In September, they even took over the regional capital of Bahir. The government eventually retook the city with the help of troops from neighboring regions, but the fighting has continued ever since. Recently, the Fano have stepped up their attacks. In October, they attacked a major military base in the region. They also attacked a number of government buildings, including the regional parliament. These attacks have left hundreds of people dead and thousands more displaced. The fighting has also spread to neighboring regions. There have been clashes between Fano fighters and soldiers in the Oromia and Sidama regions. The situation is so bad that the United Nations has called for an independent investigation into human rights abuses in the region. The UN says both sides in the conflict have committed abuses. The Ethiopian army has been accused of carrying out airstrikes on civilian areas. Meanwhile, the Fano have been accused of recruiting child soldiers and carrying out executions. Despite the international condemnation, the fighting continues. The Ethiopian government has vowed to crush the Fano militia. The government sees the Fano as a threat to the unity of the country. They believe that the militia is trying to break away from Ethiopia and form their own state. This would be a major blow to the government. So they are determined to crush the rebellion. On the other hand, the Fano are also committed to their cause. They believe that they are fighting for the rights of the Amhara people. They want greater autonomy for the region, and they are willing to fight for it. The Fano are a formidable fighting force. They are well armed and have a lot of support from the local population. So, it will be difficult for the government to defeat them. There are some calls for peace talks, but so far nothing has happened. The government has said that it is open to dialogue, but the Fano have rejected this. They say that they will not negotiate while the government is trying to disarm them, so for the time being, the fighting is likely to continue. The conflict in the Amhara region is a serious problem for Ethiopia. It is a threat to the unity of the country and it is causing a lot of death and destruction. The government needs to find a way to end this conflict, but it is not easy. The Fano are a powerful fighting force, and the government has been unable to defeat them. If this conflict continues, it could have serious consequences for Ethiopia. The Amhara people are the second largest ethnic group in Ethiopia. They make up about 27% of the country's population. The Amhara region is home to a number of important cities, including Addis Ababa, the capital of Ethiopia. The region is also home to a number of important historical sites, including the ancient rock-hewn churches of Lalibela. Despite their size and importance, the Amhara have long been marginalized in Ethiopian politics. They were ruled by the Derg regime from 1975 to 1991, and since then, they have felt that they have been denied power and resources. This has led to a growing sense of resentment among the Amhara, and in recent years, this resentment has boiled over into violence. The violence has been most intense in the Amhara and Oromia regions. In August 2019, the Ethiopian government declared a state of emergency in the Amhara region. This followed a number of attacks by the Fano militia. The Fano are an armed group that says it wants to protect the interests of the Amhara people. The government accused the Fano of trying to overthrow the constitution and establish their own state. In response, the government imposed a curfew and shut down the internet. Security forces also carried out a number of raids and made a number of arrests. Things really started to escalate in November 2020 when the Ethiopian government launched a military offensive in the Tigray region. The Tigray People's Liberation Front, or TPLF, had been in control of the region since 1991. But in recent years, they had become increasingly at odds with the federal government. The TPLF had been accused of a number of abuses, including human rights abuses and corruption. And in 2018, the federal government had removed them from power. The TPLF refused to accept this and began building up its forces. In November 2020, the TPLF attacked a federal government base and stole a large quantity of weapons. This gave the TPLF a major advantage, and the federal government was forced to launch a military offensive. The war in Tigray has had a devastating impact on the region. Thousands of people have been killed and millions more have been displaced. The fighting has also spread to neighboring Eritrea and Sudan. It isn't clear how the fighting will end, but it is clear that it has had a major impact on the region. The fighting in Tigray has also had an impact on the situation in Amhara. Many people have fled the fighting in Tigray and crossed into Amhara. This has put a strain on resources in the region, and it has also created tensions with the local population. Some of the refugees from Tigray are ethnic Amhara, and this has led to accusations that the Ethiopian government is deliberately sending them to Amhara to create problems. The government denies this, and it is not clear how much truth there is to these claims. But nonetheless, the arrival of the refugees has created tensions in the region. These tensions have been exacerbated by the presence of the Fano militia. The Fano accuse the Ethiopian government of not doing enough to protect the Amhara people, and they also accuse the government of collaborating with the TPLF. The Fano have carried out a number of attacks against government targets in response, and the government has responded with a crackdown. As I mentioned before, the Ethiopian government declared a state of emergency in the Amhara region in August 2019. This followed a number of attacks by the Fano militia. The government accused the Fano of trying to overthrow the constitution and establish their own state. In response, the government imposed a curfew and shut down the internet. Security forces also carried out a number of raids and made a number of arrests. The situation continued to deteriorate, and in November 2020, the Ethiopian government launched a military offensive in the Tigray region. The fighting in Tigray has had a devastating impact on the region. Thousands of people have been killed and millions more have been displaced. The fighting has also spread to neighboring Eritrea and Sudan. In recent weeks, the situation has escalated even further. There have been reports of heavy fighting between the Fano and the Ethiopian army. The fighting has reportedly been most intense in the towns of Kwai and Gondar, according to reports. The Ethiopian army has been trying to disarm the Fano militia, but the Fano have resisted this. Disarm. The result has been heavy fighting. It is not clear how many people have been killed or wounded in the fighting, but it is clear that it has been intense. Both sides have accused each other of committing atrocities. The Fano have accused the Ethiopian army of dropping bombs on civilian areas. Meanwhile, the Ethiopian army has accused the Fano of using civilians as human shields. The situation is very fluid, and it is possible that things could escalate even further. The fighting is part of a wider conflict that has been going on in Ethiopia for some time. The conflict is complex, and there is no easy solution. But it is clear that the fighting is having a devastating impact on the people of Ethiopia. I hope that this video has been helpful. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. I will do my best to answer them. Thanks for watching.